Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sofia and I'm the community manager here at Uxcel. Every single month, we bring design experts from all over the world to share their experience and expertise. We cover various topics like from practical how-tos to career growth, and today career growth is exactly what we are talking about. We will talk a little bit about upskilling, how you can upskill and equip yourself with the right skills, tools, mindset for the next step in your career. But before I go ahead and give the stage to our guest here, a couple of notes from my side. This is a live session, so we love to make this a little bit more interactive. I see that a lot of you are already saying hi in the comments, so feel free to also tell us your name, where you're tuning in from, and maybe what you are doing. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I have as a note, and we will then dive right into the discussion, is that we always save the last 20 minutes of the webinar for a Q&A session, and you can feel free to post your questions for our guest today anytime during the webinar, and we will get to it in the last 20 minutes. And speaking of our guest today, it is Gene. You might have already seen him around and you might be familiar with him. He is the co-founder and CEO of Uxcel. But before that, he has worked as a product designer for 8 years. And what you might not know about Gene is that he is self-taught, and he went from freelancing to working in a small product startup, then going into an enterprise, working as a product designer, and then eventually he founded Uxcel. I'm very excited to hear his experience as a designer, but also now as the CEO, and to hear his learnings about like how designers themselves can own their career growth. Gene, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, Sofia, thank you. Thank you so much for such a nice introduction. I could have said better about myself. But yeah, super excited to be here. We probably should have done it a little bit sooner, but, thanks for organizing this. And yeah, happy to share my experience with the community here. And, hopefully, I'll share something useful as well.
I'm pretty confident you will. But for those who see you for the first time, I think that they would love to hear from your perspective, your career journey, how you started, how you got here, and do you have any like key moment or decision that really put you into this direction and shaped your career path?
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, if I can start from probably my background. My education background is engineering. So I have a master's, bachelor degree I'm an engineer basically, and I have this mindset. I was really good at math in my school and in physics, etc., etc. But when I started try to learn coding, I mean, I learned some of it, but it was kind of a bit boring for me at that time. I was like trying to see myself, in 5, 10 years, like working with these lines of code, and it didn't excite me that much. So somewhere in between my education, I kind of discovered for myself design, and back then it was a Photoshop with mostly it was graphic design, to be honest, like for the very very starters, like helping out with some graphical projects. But eventually, I mean, I liked the field. I started to explore it a bit more. When the first iPhone came out, there was a lot of kind of need for iPhone apps and design for that. And actually, this were my first projects, which I landed as a freelancer.
Mhm.
Right, so I started freelancing first when I was still in school, in university, and yeah, so it was a pretty rough start. We didn't had any resources back then, honestly, to educate yourself. I remember I was buying some CD with some courses to get some kind of education and some kind of education on a tool. Back then it was a Photoshop. And yeah, I mean, spent several years like that as a freelancer. I would say grinding a lot in terms of, I don't know, like within these 3 years I completed probably 70 plus different projects. So like, it was just pure practice. We're working 10, 12 hours a day probably sometimes. And yeah, after that I kind of felt that freelancing becoming a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and you're still mostly working yourself, and wanted to kind of get myself and learn some team dynamics, etc. And yeah, so I got a nice job offer for one of the product companies, and spent the next couple of years there, working on it basically was a startup environment. It was a small team, very agile, but it helped me to learn some basics of kind of team collaboration, workflows, processes, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Then after that, I got like into a little bigger project, and eventually ended up in the US based company. I was working remotely. We had an office, and yeah, it was more of like a enterprise working in the mortgage industry. And it was, I would say, the most defining experience for me, because this was a like real busy business with a lot of challenges, with a lot of stakeholders, with a lot of teams, dev teams, design teams, product manager, like basically the full stack. And it shaped me a lot. And actually, it was one of the reasons uh, which helped me to understand and kind of start Uxcel. So yeah, that's kind of long story short.
Long story short. And looking back, was there a moment where you almost said, okay, this is maybe not for me and maybe I should reconsider where I'm going?
Mhm. I always loved design, and in my path, as I was explaining, it basically was evolving from kind of UI design. I started to get myself more into UX in the middle of my career. Eventually, much more like a product design, with understanding the product needs, collaborating with product managers a lot. And I always loved it. Actually, I never thought that like the career is not right for me. But there is another side of my probably uh, my personality, that during all this time which I was working, I always had side projects. I always had some ideas. I always tried with friends, with maybe colleagues, to build something of their own. And I think this is one of the part of me which kind of lured me into starting my own company. And another part, actually, from all of this experience and from being self-taught and meeting all of these challenges, right, from not getting all the resources you need, all the proper education. This is the second reason which actually led to start a new Excel, basically to help others, as I were, to learn better, faster. And uh, and also, I would say, the kind of big reason as well, providing something that support your kind of learning habit and lifelong learning, because all of my career time, I never stopped learning. And I think it's one of the important things, like great professionals have, from my opinion.
Yeah, definitely lifelong learning and like continuous upskilling, whether you feel like you already know it all or if maybe you're just starting out. But from your experience, what skills do you think that designers should focus on most when it comes like today's market and to stay really competitive?
hmm Well, in today's market, I mean, this is a really good question, right? So everybody's freaking out about AI. Honestly, I have no idea how all this is going to turn out. I have a vision, I have kind of my assumptions, but what I would say from my perspective is that, um, like, demand for the skills will grow, and I would say, especially demand for adjustment skills, like, for example, designers understanding product analytics, designers understanding some of the good basics of product management, or designers understanding some other fields. I think it will empower, especially with AI, empower professionals to deliver more with higher quality, because AI, how I would see it, would be a great tool to execute the busy work and free yourself to do kind of curation of this work. But in order to curate, you need to understand the domain and the topic. And I would probably expect companies kind of expecting from their employees to handle more, right? Because like if we're giving you the tool which 10x your productivity, we're probably going to expect more from you. So that's kind of my vision and my kind of idea what's going to happen. So I would say the skills are becoming more and more important, and not purely design skills, right? And especially not kind of uh, on the surface design skills, right? Like purely UI or purely graphic design. There's still going to be a lot of possibilities for creativity there, etc. But a lot of those things would be most likely automated, from my opinion. And I think it is becoming more and more crucial to acquire like more, soft skills like collaborating with others, understanding the business needs, understanding the metrics, and basically helping your team deliver on that.
So you are kind of supporting that opinion that AI will maybe create new requirements from designers in their jobs, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. Potentially, maybe some roles will kind of merge or blur or blend. But I
Mm.
mean, even right now, right? A lot of companies and the product management, a lot of companies are still doing some wireframing work and design work. I do know a lot of companies like that, partially because like the company itself don't probably have proper design leadership, etc. But that's different topic to discuss. And for example, like product management managers like that will be also empowered, right? So if you look at other roles and if you give them a proper tools which can help them to express their thoughts in a visual way, etc., they will be able to do that much more effectively. So like basically skipping some of the designers responsibility, but then not canceling it, because there's still a lot of opportunities to collaboration, etc. And like designers with depth, like more deep knowledge in the topics will be, uh, I would say, yeah, on a good position. Yeah,
Like have advantage.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned briefly that communication and soft skills are, what's going to make a difference sometimes. Um, do you have a story from your own experience? It feels a little bit like you're speaking from experience. I guess that working as a 1 to 20 designer to developer team like ratio might be a bit challenging when it comes to communication. Did you have
Yeah.
any difficulties, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's gonna giving a bit background for the community here is like on my before I started Uxcel, when we worked in an enterprise company, we had like classical situation, like we had like five designers team and amount of engineers. I mean, if you count backend engineers, it's probably the ratio was 1 to 50. But we mostly worked with the front end engineers, so I just count that. And there was a period of time, or maybe like a year or something, which I worked with four, I think, different front end teams, which total was about 20 front end engineers. And I mean, they were all great guys, I think, and all great professionals. So it really much helped to working with them, and helped to deliver, the UX and all the design work. But I think in terms of the communication, like it wouldn't be possible if uh, I would say over the years I kind of built up connection with most of them. We had a good level of understanding each other. Uh, Sometimes as well, my coding skill, like basic HTML, CSS, and some of the JavaScript coding skill, kind of help to communicate. Sometimes you can have a developer saying to you, "Hey, this is very hard," and you say, "Hey, what do you mean it's hard? I know it's not." Right?
Yeah,
And those little things help actually. And I mean, we can talk separate about that, but I would say, yeah, like having a good connection with people, understanding people, and I consider myself, pretty empathetic person. Like, I'm understanding people, understanding the reasoning, etc., etc. Having this, how you say, like emotional intelligence, and uh, basically help you be it helping you be much more efficient and productive in a day-to-day conversation, deliver your point, faster, uh, being listened to, right? So people respect you, people don't ignore you, and if you do and repeat it all the time, you build up strong, basically relationships, and yeah, that's a big, difference. It gives a yeah.
So basically, yeah, of course I can agree. I do think you are somebody who has a high level of empathy, but well, also when it comes to empathy, it's not something that can be necessarily learned that much, but you can learn to communicate clearly. So if I got it right, it helped you understand their side of their day-to-day work, but do you think it would also help the product team in general if they knew like basic design terms, basic design, um, yeah, basic design terms
Yeah.
in order to like enhance that communication?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. This is like my example with the HTML, CSS, right? If you know at least some good level of basics of that, you can be much more productive. You can, I mean, now you have all these tools, but before that, you it was pretty challenging sometimes to inspect the front end work. So you go to browser, you go inspect mode, you kind of go to these little things. But yeah, that's one example, and. Yeah, I mean, not even touching product management. We had throughout my career, when sometimes speaking with other designers, because most of us are self-taught, and I think last year I've seen some statistics: two-thirds of all design professionals are self-taught designers.
Oh God.
It is great, right? Because it shows that like people are proactive, and people have initiative. People learn by themselves, which is amazing. But it also comes with the challenge of not having a common background sometimes. Not having common terminology, common understanding. A lot of people missing some basics, like foundational things, like layout, composition. If you talk about like more visual part of things, if you talk about UX and research, I mean, there is even more to that. And like when everybody come from this background, you have great set of professionals, but sometimes collaboration can struggle, even within design team, because you just don't have common terminology, you don't have common dictionary, common understanding, and you sometimes spend time to communicate your point, which is just it's just like a principle, right? Or just a rule or something, right? Um, and yeah, if we talking about product managers, QA engineers, or something like that, if you have like at least basic understanding of what do they do, what is their work, what they consider important,
Mhm.
right, and what is their day to day kind of dynamics, it helps you to definitely communicate and deliver your point much better,
Mhm.
and again build up some trust and relationships with the team, which helps a lot.
Yeah, so definitely it does help designers to learn, step outside of their roles, and also learn
Yeah.
what other people in their team are doing. And for those who maybe are working, full-time jobs, and also want to stay in touch with the industry trends, but also like enhancing their skills, it can happen. Like I hear it all the time. Like, when do I do it? How do I how do I make the
Hmm.
time? So do you have any advice for those who are struggling to fit learning into their like daily routines?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just just need to build a habit. That's my opinion. You just need to find time. as as little as a few minutes a day, maybe an article a day, Uxcel lesson a day or something like that. That's why we support in this format and why we support in bite-sized learning. That it's precisely because of the reason that professionals don't have a lot of time and want to give this little um, this ability to learn with the little chunks of information. But yeah, throughout, for example, my journey, uh, I never stopped learning articles, videos, sometimes courses as well, and uh, you know practicing like all the side projects, which is basically learning as well, because you practice and learning new skills. When you sit in a job, especially if it's an enterprise job, you can get in a lot of skills in terms of inter-team communication. You can get in a lot of skills on talking with customers, interview, whatever. But then, like some other skills can stale, right? For
Mm.
example, if you spend in a lot of time and you like if you value and if you think you should have and if you want to progress with your visual and UI design skills, and let's say you're working in some kind of enterprise and like your day-to-day work is just designing spreadsheets and tables, like sorry, the tables, or like
Mm.
some boring interfaces, which most of the UIs are like that, or like designing for 2000s kind of interface style. Like your skills will become irrelevant if you don't support them, if you don't learn and continue. That's just the hard truth. And yeah, so I would say just dedicate and try to dedicate some time every day, every week, like whatever you have at your disposal, right? And build it a habit. It will help a lot. And I mean, especially in today's fast-paced world where the skills becoming they become an obsolete every. I think like some of the statistics from 2023 from McKinsey report or something, like 5 years is the half-life of the skills. So
Oh,
I think right now it's even shorter. So
sure.
you need to be always basically educating yourself, practicing, or anything to stay relevant. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely, there might be like a shorter span now, a lifespan of those skills. Okay, so making it really a habit to fit learning into the daily. I guess with micro learning, you can use short breaks, but I guess with every habit, you need to put in an actual effort to do
Yeah.
it. Um, and in one of our previous chats, you shared that designers really need to start thinking about aligning their work with business objectives. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
hmm Yeah, that's also a good question, and also comes with like idea that like today's world, like and reshaping skills, reshaping roles, probably like you need to have all these adjustment skills. But even just like speaking about design and your day to day work, um, like unfortunately, still a lot of organizations they don't have proper representation in design leadership, right? Or the companies not really have like good level of design maturity, meaning like they don't really understand the value design brings, and it becomes very very hard to do your work. I would say that if like one of the managers I worked with, they threw a phrase like, "Oh yeah, that's like putting a lipstick on a pig." It kind of threw me off back then because this phrase showed that like hey, he has no understanding basically of the value of like proper and effective design. So the importance of understanding the business values and the business needs and communicating within that will basically help you with your day-to-day job. And I mean, like if you're a beginner, if you first several years in your career, especially if you're coming kind of from visual side, you don't need to worry about that. But once you mature in your career, once you especially if you go with the UX product path, This, I would say, this is a crucial skill. Like you need to explain your design decisions, ideally in the context of business, gains. Like, hey, this is gonna make it, faster, more scannable, easier to use, or etc. etc. Like, yeah, it is complex. I would say it's not always easy to do, but just like trying to do that, I think will help.
It's not easy to do. So how can like designers who want to start doing it, how can they start easily, maybe ease themselves into doing it? Do you have any tips for them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think first start to get familiarizing yourself with, what are the business metrics. I know a lot of designers don't know even the business metric terminology, right? What is the some economic metrics, some kind of conversions, like all the things, and then like probably be a little bit closer to your product manager if you have one, and try to understand how he speaks and what he puts in priorities. Because if he puts something in priorities, if you speak his language and frame your design decision within this priority, the chances it's going to pass are going to be much higher compared to, okay, I created this design for this feature, that right, or like this designs for this feature, right? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit general advice, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good step, like just finding, like learning more about what are some business objectives you can track, but also like what are some business goals that your manager in general, like in particular, has. So it's a good step, number one, to ease yourself into that. And have you ever had a moment when communicating the business value of your design work made a difference for you?
Yeah, it made a difference for me. It didn't make like much of a difference to the company back then because of kind of not really understanding. Maybe it was my fault not communicating it properly, but like it was a design system decision, and I basically, so my story about advocating for design system took like 6 months to a year, and eventually it didn't turn out how I wanted to be. I did not got all the resources, etc., and it's actually one of the reasons why I left the company eventually. But yeah, it was a design system. So how I approached that, I kind of build a case for this, build a case why we need it, and if you do research, you can have like you can find a lot of resources how to build such cases. Back then there was, I mean, probably there was only one article 6 years ago, and so basically I built the case. I start speaking with engineers. I kind of took a little bit kind of bottom up approach. I started to speak first with people who are going to work with design system, and then eventually made a presentation, had a couple meetings with the management, and advocated like why we need design system, basically with highlighting that it's going to improve design work, it's going to improve tremendously development work, it's going to improve customer experience because we're going to remove a lot of inconsistencies in the system, which is just going to make the system work nicer, look nicer, be more pleasant, which giving a lot of benefits. So yeah, that was my case. And it shaped. So I would say I got some resources, and I can inspire a lot of engineers actually to go and pursue. So we set up all this storybook workflow, etc., etc. But we didn't got, like, I would say, full support from the management back then. And
Mhm.
it was a little bit of disappointment for me. I mean, looking back, probably I could have done better from all my knowledge and experience now, but it is what it is.
It can be, I guess, a little bit, yeah, disappointing, but also discouraging to build a whole case and not get it validated. But at least I think what I would take as a takeaway from the whole experience is that I think maybe that was a pivotal moment for you where you decide, okay, so I am competent and I want more. I think that's what a lot of designers, at least watching us, can also maybe relate to. Um, and looking back at your startings and how you got everything, I mean, well, how you got everything started when you were learning, and when you just maybe was freelancing or when you joined a startup. Is there maybe one piece of advice you wanted or you wished you had heard back then? Maybe it would have helped you approach your like career differently.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say I would probably give more of general advice. Is always seek for a greater challenge. And somewhere in the middle of my career, I heard or I read a phrase that if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
So I think it's resonated a lot with me, and probably if I've heard it a bit early in my career, I would be challenging myself more often. But yeah, I would say that like if you think from this perspective, I mean, it's probably not gonna not gonna fit everyone's personality and everyone's approach to work and to to development and to performance, etc. But for me, it was something which struck and yeah. So always check and always think like, hey, if you are the smartest person in the room, right? And because like, hey, you are the average of I think five people who you spend time the most,
Most.
and our work that we spent a lot of time with our colleagues, and right, the colleagues should be and your peers should be in certain areas better than you because you're gonna level up together basically.
That's true. And I'm curious, why do you think that resonated with you so much?
Oh, that's mm, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Was always I mean, in my career, I mean, in my day-to-day work life, I was always seeking how can I improve things, how I can do things more efficiently and
Mhm.
effectively. So I was like, back in the day, I built a lot of scripts for the Photoshop to automatically, kind of reduce my routine work. So kind of exporting assets, etc. Probably a lot of designers don't know these days about this struggle. When Sketch came out, I learned all the kind of shortcuts
Mhm.
so that I'll be more efficient. I don't spend
Yeah.
mental power to like the task which not actually do the work, and you spend more mental power to do the work. So I was always trying to push myself and to be the more efficient in what I do,
Mhm.
and so I think this kind of partially why it resonated because it kind of talks to this point of how you become how you evolve always. So yeah.
Makes sense. I was curious because it is something that I don't hear very often, like people mentioning that that's like the advice they would like to have heard before. And speaking of things that you may do better, such as being with people who are maybe smarter than you in the room. What is the one common mistake that you see junior and mid-level designers making when it comes to their career growth, and do you think they can avoid doing that?
Yeah, uh, I think being proactive is the core, especially for your start of your career. Because, like, fortunately, I've seen a lot of people in any stage of career that they're not being proactive. They just accumulating years of experience and they expect to grow like that, or they expect for somebody to push them, or they expect for somebody to kind of educate them or to promote them, etc., etc. Like own your career growth, right? Be proactive, learn new things, go to your manager, ask what they can do, build a plan together. If manager, they might not have time, like they also have a lot of responsibilities. And if you're going to be waiting, you're gonna put yourself in a bad light, and like, hey, come to the manager, help him out, build together, propose to build. Okay, what what is this goal for me for the career? Let's commit to something and stay proactive with that, and grow. I would say this is the most important one, especially for beginners. But it is true for everybody. Like, don't wait for something to come. Just own your career growth.
Nice. So proactivity.
Yeah.
And I guess that's for juniors and mid-level, but for maybe we have some seniors or more senior people here watching us. Do you have like a general takeaway for those who are watching us? Maybe one thing that they can take away from the session, and what do
Mhm.
you that one thing is?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I would repeat probably that being a lifelong learner and
Hmm.
always pushing yourself, because like if you don't, you're gonna lose your skills. You're gonna become irrelevant, and yeah, you're gonna stale. So I would say, yeah, develop your skill set always. Like, either if you go into the leadership role, push yourself, make yourself look for uncomfortable situations, look for scary situations. If something scares you off, if you're afraid to do something, this is a good sign that you need to go and do it, because this is something which pushes you out of the comfort zone, and which it builds new neural connection in your brain and builds your skills. So it's again probably a little bit general advice, but I would say that would be my advice. Yeah.
And that's wonderful advice because I think it kind of rounds up everything we discussed today. Putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, maybe talking about business objectives, rather like defending your design, reasoning behind some of your
Yeah.
decisions. So I think it's very good overall advice. And with that, I would love to thank you for having this conversation with me. I would now like to invite everyone else to join us. So it's time for the Q&A. I see already some questions here. Let me just pull up. First off, we have, let me, so sorry if it's off topic, but I don't think this is off topic. I see that you're based in Europe. What do you think about the job demand of designers in the next 5 years? Will there be another wave of employment?
Yeah, that's a hot question. Personally, I don't have like complete understanding of that, especially if we talk about 5 years. I do believe that the need of design professionals will prevail, and how the market in terms of like the wave of employment, I I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's hard. I don't have like the expertise. I'm not in the industry. I'm not. We're not like we're a lean team. We're a small team. We don't have like 20, 40 design person team. We would be much more engaged uh, with the current market. But what I've heard when I'm constantly reading, constantly connecting with people and design leaders, they seem to be a signs of kind of recovering of the employment and of the job openings from because like last year and a half there was a dip, and this is recovering right now. That's all what I know.
Fair. Thank you. And thank you, Frankie, for asking the question. Next one is from another, like, would you recommend if you are trying to get noticed by a particular company, should one do a project based on the company's values to get noticed or feedback? Um, Let me just also maybe break this down.
Yeah, I think I understand this one.
Yeah,
So yeah,
okay.
yeah, thank you
Sorry.
for the question.
Thank
I mean, if you have capacity, if you have time, absolutely, do it. It's not only gonna, stretch yourself to practice a bit. Uh, put yourself in the shoes of the company, and it will most definitely, if you do a good job, it will most definitely um, put you in a spotlight, especially with other candidates if they're an active search. It's not required, absolutely not required, right? It all depends of your desired capability. But yeah, if you can do it, I don't see a reason why not.
Thank you. We have from Spidey, JJJ. Hi, Jean. I am interested to start a new career as a UX researcher, but I don't know where I should start, to be honest. Do I need to learn more about UI design? And okay, what kind of portfolio should I build? Um,
Yeah.
maybe Jean, you have a few words of advice.
Yeah, from my experience, it's very much dependent on where you are, your location, and some of the countries they have a lot of companies who do have a solid UX research practice, and but a lot of others they don't, right? So in terms of like UI and all the skills, I mean, UX research like you don't need to start with UI design for sure. Like UX research skills are much more closer to kind of product management skills, from my opinion. You need to understand the user, you need to understand how to speak, you need to understand how to, build personas. What are the journeys customers are taking? You need to understand how to run tests, etc., etc. So much less on the actual kind of visual design side. So if you would want later during the road to acquire some of those skills as UX researcher, yeah, it will help, but you most definitely don't need those as the start of the career. In terms of where to start, honestly, again, if you are looking for on-site job, it's very much location dependent. I know, like if in UK, it's you have much bigger UX research. Um, population and demand for this in some countries, like from the country where I came from, right, originally, there were like there's still almost non-existent UX researchers, because like a lot of companies is mostly outsourced companies where the maximum you have is kind of some kind of business analytics, etc. But you get in projects and you doing the projects. Like still a lot of countries they have a lot of companies who are mostly outsourced, so they're not necessarily doing a lot of research. So yeah, look for established company, for a little bit bigger company, because like UX researchers usually required when the company is pretty big. So like a established product company, not necessarily like a just starting startup. That's the advice I can give.
That's good advice. I think also Spidey said, they have some background experiences in market researcher, so that probably there are
Yeah,
some transferable skills there.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. We have a question about Uxcel. So, where do you see Uxcel in the next 5 years? Do you have any major goals you want to accomplish?
Yeah, thank you for this question, Frankie. Yeah, we have a big vision for Uxcel. We started with a single course, and we started with interactive course with interactive approach to education, with bite-sized and digested for you learning. We spend a lot of time in research on the topics to kind of remove all the fluff and deliver you all this knowledge, and this is the core, and this core we want to take and bring to I would say our product vision everywhere uh, anywhere we want to take it. So like Uxcel in 5 years would be much more probably robust platform for uh, all design, education tool set and lifelong learning, I would say. We have some interesting things upcoming I cannot share with you right now. This will be probably shared in early 2025. But we want to we want to be the one go to for any UX design professional to continuously uh, educate themselves and be in shape, and
Yeah.
you know yeah.
Yeah, so That's an answer that didn't say, like, didn't reveal much, but
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, we can go. I don't want to talk with like feature sets and
yeah,
everything, but like think about comprehensive roadmaps for design roles, which takes you from any level of your career. Think about assessments, which and you could have noticed that with our recent Uxcel post. That's kind of our first step into that. Like it's an assessment which is basically helping you to evaluate your skill set precisely on your career level and kind of precisely guide you through your next steps
yeah,
of the career. So think about those things. Much more, much bigger course coverage for like complete skill set of any design professional. Plus, as we talked with all the adjustment skills, and you could see it with our recent course release. So yeah, product discovery. This is kind of that's why we released it. So yeah, and it's going to be your lifelong career partner with the core of it of being. I know a lot of our members are saying it's Duolingo for design education. So
yeah,
they did a good job, and we're very much inspired with a lot of successes they did. So we're taking this interactivity and bringing it to the tool set we want to give for design professionals to continuously strive. As like our name of the company says, you excel, right?
yeah,
It is like that in purpose, like you becoming better all the time. So
exactly. And on that note, um, we have a similar, like an additional follow-up question, let's say. Do we have any plans of moving UXL into XR design?
oh yeah, this from what our community asks, this is not like a hot topic for us, to be honest.
Yeah,
uh if we will see a lot of demand for this, we will definitely introduce some XR design topics and courses. But given our format of education might be challenging, right? And but yeah, we very much listen to the community and we try to deliver the educational content which been asked the most. For now, this topic is not being asked that much, so we're focusing on the most kind of hot skills now.
speaking of topics and courses that we are being asked, I will just bring this up so you can see.
Hmm.
But this could be a great topic for a new UXL course: how to defend your design. Putting it out there as the
Hmm.
community asks, but that's something we can think about. And
Yeah,
going back,
absolutely. This is a good one. Like, yeah, how to communicate your design decisions, how to defend your design. This is something we will definitely introduce. I would probably say pretty soon.
awesome. And speaking of articulating design decisions, we have a question from Seuro. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Do you have any tips for articulating design decisions more effectively? Maybe on the spot before, as a preview to the course.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. It all depends. It's very hard to answer, like precisely. If you have some um, access in your, it depends on what kind of company you work with, like what kind of role you have, etc. But if you have in your company access to some analytics, etc., uh, you know, try to get in, trying to understand, and if your design, feature, prototype, or something uh, can impact some of the metrics, right, and you can connect it, this would be a good way to say like, hey, our weekly active users are at this level. If we I want to introduce this, I don't know, little pop-up which can remind them contextually that you need to come back every week or something like that, like in certain way, like giving them a little tip or a little nudge. and this will grow our weekly active users, which will grow, so on and so forth. So this is one of the ways, but you definitely need to kind of understand analytics, understand core metrics, and understand what to look at and how to connect with design. So it probably will require a little bit, wider skill set. If you don't have this, there is a lot of ways to show the proof from the world out there, and there are resources and there are articles and there are case studies and examples of more performing things. Let's say you design in a pricing table, you design in a comparison table or something like that. Try to look it up, and if you happen to find a case study, I mean, there's a lot of resources out there. For example, like Build for Mars, I really
Mhm.
like it. They have a lot of examples of, uh, like churn reduction techniques or conversion optimization techniques, etc. And if you can, again, depends on the design feature and decision you're doing and presenting. If you can look up something like that, if you can show like, hey, Airbnb, these guys, those guys making it, yeah, it can help. I don't saying it will help because, again, like they have their own context and it's completely different products, but it can help to show your product manager or whoever making decision to push the feature forward, to understand, okay, this seemed to be a good idea. So
For those who want the resource Jean mentioned, you can find it in the comments. And uh, thank you again for the amazing question. I have one more question here that I can bring up from Isaac. Um, is there any way you recommend I sharpen my UI design skills better? I feel intimidated these days seeing some great designs online.
okay, yeah, well, it just comes to practice, right? You just need to practice a lot. If you're working on your job, like if you try to experiment there, try to use this time to always experiment there. If you have some spare time, you have passion, on the spare time, try to take a project or something like that. I mean, there is a lot of techniques to kind of, depending on where you are in the career, if you just starting out, just like replicate a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, and replicate to a certain extent, because like the value here comes from your kind of own as well style. I mean, if we're talking not purely about UI design, it also depends, right? So like if it's UI design, um, yeah, there is less flexibility in there, like UI design, let's say, for applications, etc. But if it's like more of the website, etc., that is much more interesting things you can do. But yeah, just basically practice, practice, and practice. That's the only thing I can say. That's what worked for me. I mean, if you have a talent, maybe you can get there faster, right? But yeah.
Practice makes perfect, right? I think that's all for the questions for today. So let me remove everything from the screen. Jean, once again, huge thanks for taking the time and joining us for the webinar today. I had a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I think, judging from the comments, people who have joined us as well have would agree with me. So thank you for doing that. For you guys that would like to stay in touch with our upcoming events, feel free to check out our Luma calendar, but also keep an eye on your email. You always get a little email from us every week with the upcoming events. Um, Also, would love to give you, Jean, any sort of like space for you to say if there's anything you want to say, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, thank you for that. And again, Sophia, thank you for organizing this. And thank you everybody who joined the session, joined this webinar. It means a lot to see all of you here, and yeah, it's been great. I hope I gave some interesting perspective, maybe for, from my experience. I hope I answered some questions, and yeah, we'll try to get our events maybe more interesting next time with me. But yeah, yeah, it's been great. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you all for joining us today. The recording, you will receive the recording, so you can always look back. And yeah, see you next time. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
thank you.